Welcome back to Backcountry BSing.
Sweet.
Another show today. We've got we're breaking out a little bit. We're going away from the YouTubers here.
I like talking to people who are being innovative.
Yes, and I want to talk to more people in like the technology sector of this of backpacking.
Yeah.
So we have two members from Art of the Trek. So if you've listened to our podcast, you know that they have sponsored this channel. They are not sponsoring this episode.
Nope.
We didn't. We
yeah,
didn't.
That would be weird.
That would be weird. That'd be a conflict of interest. But we want to talk to them.
Yeah.
So let's bring them on.
Yep.
First off, thank you both for talking to us. I know we're all over the world right now with you guys. It's really very cool. I do think though, before we kind of launch in, how about and either of you guys can answer this. How about just give like a quick, for people who are listening, a quick little like overview of what Art of the Trek is.
Sure. I guess I'll take the lead on that. So Art of the Trek is a solution to the problem of having a plan for what to do before you go out there, knowing information about what to expect on the ground, and overall just avoiding surprises and having successful adventures in the backcountry.
Yeah.
That was very, very good. That was much better than I could have said. And I do want to. So you guys have been around for at least a couple of years now, right?
Yeah, we've been plugging away on this for a couple years. Starting small and listening to users. And Nicole has a lot of experience chatting with people, and this has been really built up based upon feedback from hikers and campers out there around the world. Maybe she can speak a little bit to her involvement with them and how that has guided the project.
Yeah, so I have a great job. I'm very lucky that I get to talk to, backpackers really all over the world. Of course, a lot of folks in the US, but also I would say Australia, Europe, even some folks in Asia, South America. So a little bit all over the place. And yeah, I mean, generally, we're just really interested in hearing, what kind of feedback do you have for us? What can we do to improve what we're doing? Are there any features that you'd like to see that we're not we don't currently offer? And then I really just take all those ideas back to the team, and then, the development guys really make that happen.
So where did the idea come from? Like, I know what you're trying to accomplish, but like, how did you get that spark?
Yeah, I suppose I growing up in the outdoors and spend a lot of time doing it. My background's in computer engineering, so blending software in the outdoors to solve problems that I saw existed out there was a natural fit for me. That said, as tempting as it is sometimes to make it a pet project of my own, we really try and have it be guided by user demand and prioritize the things that people want to see out there. So it probably sparked by me and then driven by community feedback, as Nicole was referencing.
And so I'm assuming, Scott, this just started with just you.
Yeah, so started off as me as a one-man show doing a little bit of everything. Yeah.
And now, Nicole, I think we talked about this. Can you talk about like how big you guys have gotten just over the last couple of years? Because it's not a small enterprise now.
Well, it's still a small, I think it's still a small team. I would say, I don't know, Scott, are there maybe 12 of us on board?
Yeah, you could say that. There's a core group of maybe half a dozen of us. And then, help that if you include our route guide planner colleagues and things like that, who are a little bit more experienced backpackers who come help us and provide route guides for areas that they're familiar with in response to user requests and things like that. Yeah, we could call ourselves a group of a dozen.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, no, that's pretty solid.
And are we allowed to talk about the route planning stuff? I know you guys are getting like bombarded with those requests. We don't have to talk about it if you're at capacity, but
we can chat about that, and good problem to have. So yeah, I was referencing that, and that has indeed been one of our most popular features so far. So if you go to artofthetrek.com and request a custom route guide, there's a form to fill out about all of the criteria you have for the ideal trip you're looking for in your area. And then, a real person, sits down and researches that and, provides a route and detailed information on water sources and campsites and permits and what to expect and how to get there, information about the trailhead and an overview of the route. And in many ways, what a lot of us are familiar with from a book of backpacking routes that you can buy. And this is just going to be a more sort of worldwide online compendium of those. And yes, as you were alluding to, that is popular. We've been swamped. We've fallen behind on a lot of those requests, and that's a good problem to have while we're starting out and scaling up. So yeah, perhaps we'll regret in a few days talking about this on your popular show. We have a lot of other stuff going on as well that we'd be happy to highlight. But yes.
Oh yeah, we will. Yeah, we want to talk about it too. But I remember Nicole, when we talked, and you sent over one of the guides that you prepare for people. And I was like, I can't believe this is free.
I know that's.
I mean, there is. I was very impressed with the detail and the deliverable as a whole. I thought it was very cool, and that's a very cool. And I understand why you guys are getting blown up for that.
Yeah,
that's a good service.
And that's the niche right there. It's because we're lazy.
Yeah, but let's talk about that a little bit. Let's talk about buddies, because I also think that is a cool service, and that's a niche, and that's something that doesn't exist in the backpacking sector right now, because it is difficult if you don't have anyone to backpack with and you don't want to backpack alone.
Yeah,
because there are a lot of impediments to that.
Or maybe it's your first time,
or certainly if it's your first time. I think that's the thing you guys have set up is a cool way to break down a barrier. We're all about getting more people outside. I mean, honest to God, that's kind of like why we started this, is like we truly believe this world would be a better place if more people were outside, like recreating. And I think breaking down a barrier for a lot of people is they've never done it before. They're interested in it, but they don't have anyone to do it with, and they don't want to go out there. I mean, certainly I wouldn't have wanted to do that.
No, me neither. Absolutely.
So let's talk a little bit about buddies. So how, and either of you guys can field this. How did that idea come to you guys?
Yeah, well, let me jump in real quick to talk about what you were referencing there about getting people over the hump to taking more backcountry adventures. And then I'll turn it over to Nicole to chat about our buddies feature that facilitates that. But yeah, what you were talking about there really, I'm not one for, cheesy mission statements for a company or anything like that. But if we were to have one, it would be getting people, especially beginners, over the hump to taking more backcountry adventures out there. So you'll see that guiding all of our choices and all of our features from the route guides to the buddies to many other things that we do. So glad that we have that in common, and looking to solve problems to get people out there. And the buddies functionality is definitely one of those things. And I'll turn it over to Nicole to chat about that for a little bit.
Yeah, I've had hundreds and hundreds of phone calls with backpackers, and that was one of the most requested features, far and above really anything else. Most people I talked to said they'd want to be connected with someone in their community, which actually was a little bit of a surprise to me. But it seems like there's a lot of folks out there that enjoy backpacking, but maybe just don't have the friend group, right, or the family group. So we launched the Buddies form. That's over at buddies.artofthetrek.com. So yeah, we're just gathering information from people that would be interested in joining these groups. So we ask about all kinds of stuff: weather preferences, how many miles a day you'd like to hike, etc. Really, it's a lot of stuff.
I want to be sure that we're getting good matches for people, for groups that they fit into well physically, socially, in their area, and for trips that they're looking to do. And as well, sort of pairing mentors with beginners, asking about how experienced people are and whether they'd like to learn from others or like to be teaching others about how to do things better. So there's a lot in there, but all good information to be asking that helps us do a good job of making groups, primarily with a focus on overnight trips. For this and everything else we do, it's overnight trips really that we target, just because there are good resources for day hikes. There's less to plan for. We have more problems to solve for overnight trips. So that's also been a focus.
I'm not gonna lie, pandemic really screwed you guys with the buddies thing.
Well, I don't know if it did though. I mean, I think we obviously can't launch groups in a lot of places immediately.
Yeah.
But on our end, it's actually a great time to just proactively gather this information.
That is absolutely true.
Because we need some time for people to fill out the forms and then get good groups together and then plan trips. So actually, I feel like it's working out. Oh.
And people have been engaging with it, from home and looking forward to going out with groups again when they're able in their different areas.
Yeah, and we talked about this. I do think we've talked about this. We've had a lot of gear companies on this show during this whole situation, and I do think there's going to be a really big pent up demand to get outside. I mean, we're seeing it now. I mean, even where we live, if you just go like on the nature trails around us, they're just packed with people right now. And we're actually going backpacking in a week from now, and we're doing our best to go places we know aren't super popular just because we know there's going to be so many people out there. But I do think there's going to be a massive pent up demand for this kind of stuff, especially now that we're getting into warmer weather and we're getting into, like, at least in where we live, like prime backpacking area. But one thing I was kind of interested in is have you guys, and I don't know like who's combing through like what people are filling out, but have you like learned anything interesting about people through this buddy stuff? Like, are people selecting options or selecting things that were kind of surprising to you?
Let me think. I guess people fulfill. No.
That's a fine answer
for you there.
Yeah. No, I just didn't know if like you're like, oh, like a lot of people starting out, they tend to preference this, maybe like that didn't, like maybe that was a surprise or something. I don't know, because I actually went through and was filling out. It's very cool. Like, it's basically a survey you take and you kind of like pick out what you like about backpacking effectively. Like, what's your style? And I'm assuming you guys use that to kind of match people up. I just think it's a cool service.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And anything exotic or interesting?
I don't know. I mean, I think the questions that I always go right to see how people respond are the ones about like drinking and guns and recreational drugs. Just because I'm curious, I'm like, how many people are gonna say?
That's good.
Hey,
you guys put that in.
Yeah. No, that's
maybe that's a personal curiosity.
You got a lot of boozy people.
I wonder if there's trends by like geography for that.
There's gotta be.
Yeah.
There's gotta be.
Yeah, maybe you get more younger people into, like, someone's. I understand people bring marijuana on camping trips sometime, like a whiskey by the fire, and some people really don't. And some people feel safer going with a firearm depending on where they're camping, and other people are horrified at that idea. So we try and ask people about. I don't know if those are controversial things, but
not anymore.
No, and
out in every area. So
and we we've backpacked all over the country now, and backpacking in Ohio, Pennsylvania, Michigan is much different than backpacking in Colorado or California in terms of the people you see out there, what they're bringing, and what they're doing.
Yes, absolutely.
And everything you mentioned, you'll see it. You'll see it. There's a lot more firearms in Ohio and Pennsylvania than there are in California. And that was something I remember. I remember the first time I went backpacking with my wife, and we were at the parking lot, and this was 2011, I think. First time I went with her, and we were just gearing up, and there's two guys, the car next to us, getting their gear out. And we're just like chit chatting. They turn around and they both had like drop leg hip holsters with Glocks on them. And I was like, okay. it really takes you back at first. And then now we see people in Ohio.
Yeah, it's every other person.
We see a lot of people open carrying. That's not something Andy and I have ever done. Not that
and there's specifically hikers and backpackers going. It's like a personal protection thing for them. Is that it?
Yes.
Interesting.
Honestly.
Yeah. I mean, there's no wild animal in Ohio that you're going to need to fend off.
And if there was, like bear,
it's so rare.
It's rare, and the little 9mm pistol.
I mean, maybe the argument about like down in southern Ohio, some little sketchy areas.
Yeah, and that's another thing. depending on where you backpack, you know, Andy and I, and probably the reason people are carrying these things is in Ohio and in the Midwest, we've had the sketchiest encounters with people, not with animals.
Yeah.
It sounds like there may be a good story or two there. You gotta.
Yeah. Well, we've got, because people always ask us, you know, what's the scariest thing? And on more than one occasion, on several occasions, a very common thing that happens to us, I remember last time it happened to you, is like 2 a.m., you're sleeping, and there's a flashlight and a person right in your face.
Oh, wow.
So maybe that should be on the survey somewhere.
That has happened to us. And it was never like malicious. You know, one time this guy was looking for his group of friends and thought we were them. And so there's just a flashlight in Andy's face.
Yeah, in the middle of the night.
In the middle of the night, it wakes you up, and it's definitely scary. That has happened to us on numerous occasions, but never malicious, I guess.
No. It was always just people.
We've definitely encountered like what appear to be very sketchy people on the trail, for sure. Absolutely. Not at night, though.
Their backcountry marijuana grow operation.
No, we have not. We have not hit that yet.
Luckily,
we're waiting. You know, we've been to California. We haven't hit that yet. I know, right? Although they say that's rampant in the national forest.
That would be the.
I don't even know how I would respond to that.
I'd run.
Just walk out on a field of marijuana. I don't know. Get out of there. Yeah. What other sketchy things have happened to us?
Nothing. Just
other than people.
A few human.
Yeah, the animal interactions. We've seen bears, but it was never sketchy. We did some like any sketchy like cliff sort of stuff in Linville Gorge.
No,
a little bit. I don't know.
No.
What about you guys?
That's actually. So actually, this is a project Nicole and I have had. We're planning on doing a blog post about sort of most, not necessarily sketchy with people adventures, but sort of challenges people have run into. I guess a couple of mine come to mind, more of weather and environmental stuff, like times I've wound up swimming across rivers with my pack, or maybe that's a good brief story to add to the discussion here.
Let's hear it.
So
Please, now you have to tell us.
Rain training hike, and went out on purpose in a pretty good rainstorm and had to walk across a glorified stream to get out there, and hiked around for 5 hours in the rain and came back, and the stream was a flooded, swollen river that I had no hope of walking across again. So had to reference satellite view on my phone and find a bend in the river where it widened out and shallowed out a bit. Wound up waiting for the water to recede a little bit. But even then, I sort of held my pack by one strap and doggy paddled across that, which may not have been wise in retrospect. So another thing we're looking to compile is sort of brief, sort of 3-paragraph stories from experienced backpackers of sort of the decision-making process of bad choices they've made or problems they found themselves in, and how they got there, how they should have made different decisions.
But do you consider?
I've got a story.
Do you consider that a bad situation that you were in? Like that was a poor decision?
So I did not have the gear with me to spend the night, and certainly getting swept downriver would have been problematic. I was a competitive swimmer, but that's irrelevant in the current of a swift river. So that was a bad choice. That probably would have been a good time to inconvenience rescue services. So I wasn't spending the night out in a rainstorm with improper gear or risking getting swept downstream. It wound up fine in that situation, but do that 36 times, make those kind of choices, you're going to have a problem in one of them. So that is, I think, a good example of where I should have made different decisions. And I have a few more of those of my own personal stories that we're putting together and trying to, hopefully Nicole can reach out to you guys and get a couple of yours. You got any?
I'll give you some.
But I think you did a good job.
We've got plenty.
I think you did a good job of like trying to mitigate that risk by like pulling up the satellite views and if you had to cross, where would a better place be?
Yeah, no, and I was willing to let the pack go, and I did put the car keys and my phone in a Ziploc bag in my pocket. So I tried to mitigate it, but still, sort of doggy paddling across a swift. We wouldn't recommend that to beginners. We'd say, get someone with a rope or drop you some gear. But have any environmental or
hold on.
decision
I fell in a river with all of our electronics gear.
Yeah, that was a poor decision. Yeah, if you're crossing a river and you've got thousands of dollars worth of audiovisual equipment, make sure it's not in a place where it can get wet. But when you said the pulling up the satellite maps on your phone, this was a story, and it's the same trip we're talking about.
Oh, yeah, in Linville.
So we went to Linville Gorge. So I don't know if you're familiar with Linville Gorge. It's in North Carolina. It's like right south of the Smoky Mountains. It's beautiful. It's a huge rock climbing destination. It's basically a massive gorge that runs, and there's you can circumnavigate the whole gorge in about 40 miles. So Andy and I went down there 3 years ago, and we met up with another YouTuber guy. And we'd always want to try Linville Gorge. It's a pretty famous backpacking spot.
It's challenging.
Very challenging. Yeah. What Andy and I didn't know is, so very rarely do Andy and I not do any of the planning.
Yeah.
So we are normally when we meet up with people, we're normally taking charge of the planning. I don't know, we're a little OCD, but it was nice. We're like, oh, this is great. This is great.
We're with some other experienced backpackers.
We're with a guy that's been there before.
Yeah.
We're with a really experienced backpacker we know from YouTube. This is going to be great. We don't have to do anything. So I didn't know this at the time, but they're like, all right, we're gonna circumnavigate the entire Linville Gorge. We're like, oh, it'll be sweet. It's 40 miles. We're there for 3 or 4 days.
Yeah.
What we didn't know at the time is there is no trail that actually circumnavigates the whole gorge. If you want to circumnavigate the whole gorge, you have to do
some bushwhacking. About
15 miles of bushwhacking through 0 established trails.
All right. Well, that sounds pretty tedious.
It was awful.
It was, and we're going to get to it. It was, and to further complicate things.
Okay.
The one guy,
the one
so
guy,
there are 5 of us. The one guy who'd been there and knew the bushwhacking way had to bail before we got there.
He got injured.
So, and we have this on video. We held out our phones. So this was the last day. We're like, okay, we got 15 miles of bushwhacking to get back to the car. There's no trails. We're like, you need to tell us how to do this. We've never been there. So we pulled out our audio recorder on our phone. We're like, give us your directions. And it involved following bean cans hung on trees.
Yeah. Anyway,
we got completely lost, flat out lost in the middle of Pisgah National Forest. No, I mean, there's no, we don't bushwhack. That's not what we do.
No.
You're not on a trail. You're in the middle of the forest. And there were 4 of us because the 5th guy who actually knew the way dropped out. And what happened was, it was awful. I've never not back, and this is this is the South, so it's overgrown. It's not like out west where it's pine forest.
It's all rhododendron.
It's rhododendron. You're going through it. It was raining. It was not flat. And so this is what reminded me of the story. And so we were not leading.
We came to a clearing.
And I was like, this is bullshit. And so I walked up, and I was able to get cell service at the top of a crest of one of the mountains. And I pulled the satellite imagery for where I was, and I saw there was a farm. There was a farm a quarter mile or a half mile up the bank of this mountain. And I remember getting pushback on wanting to do this because some people in the group wanted to continue bushwhacking, and I was like, no. We were literally lost in the middle of a national forest on the 3rd day of a 4-day trip. So you're down on supplies. So we used satellite imagery to kind of navigate our way to a farm, a huge acre farm. And then we were able to follow that farm up to find a road. And that's how we got saved. But it was several mistakes were made.
Yeah.
Not knowing the whole trip plan.
Yeah, not knowing and not spending the time to research it ourselves.
Yeah, and then when the guy that did know the way bailed out, we should have never attempted it.
Yeah.
It was literally okay, go count 6 trees down on your left, cut up, go a quarter mile this way. There's a bean can on a tree, turn right, take that for 2 miles. There's a down log. literally, those were the directions we were given to cover 15 miles. We're like, what? So that was very regrettable.
And I think that's a great point to reinforce for beginners listening or watching this, is that it's never just one thing. It's always a series of choices and events and things that get thrown at you. And, you got to leave a buffer so that, imagine if you hadn't have had your phone or reception where you were and things like that. So you always have to have, at least 2 links left before, you need to call for a helicopter or and I'm looking at the inReach behind your head there.
Yeah, there's
make sure you have the option to call for a helicopter too, is an important link in the chain, right?
Yeah. So that last year I did some solo backpacking out in the Lake Tahoe area, and that was like I read too many stories of people like getting pinned under rocks and dying from dehydration, and my wife was like, dude, you got to take something. So I got the inReach, and that was
I wish we had a sponsorship by Garmin. We don't yet, but I wish that we did. So as I say this, it's just as a big fan of the device. Like the inReach is fantastic relative to anything else out there, because it also provides the ability to live track you and be emailing and texting with people, so you avoid if you need some help but not a helicopter, you can keep it low key and call for help from friends or family as well. So and it's great experiences with it.
It's cool. Like you can send people the link and like just follow like your breadcrumbs. I think that's cool for people. Another story that came to mind about regrets, and this wasn't a major regret. You're talking about inclement weather. When one of the first times we went backpacking together was 2009 in Wyoming, actually, in the Bighorn Mountains, and we got caught out in some pretty nasty hailstorms.
Yeah, we were stuck for like 2 days, 2.5 days.
And that was our first time. Like we're from Ohio, man. Like that was our first time in like mountains, like mountains. And as you guys probably know, I mean, when you're up there, I mean, especially in the summer, like weather can come in so fast. And we had like a little base camp set up, and we would just we were doing day hikes, but we got caught out in hailstorms several times. And it's scary up there.
And one of our buddies, his gear failed, and he tried to leave, and he couldn't. He couldn't leave because there was a part of the trail that went on this cliff face, and there was a bull moose that wouldn't let him by.
Yeah, his tent, like it was at night. Another hailstorm came through, rain, everything, and his tent was flooding, and we were 9 miles from the car. And I think it was like 9 p.m., like 8 or 9 p.m. And Randall, he's like, guys, I'm just going to hike down there, sleep in my car. And then the next morning we were going to leave. I'm like, all right. But like at 11:30 p.m., he comes running back into the trail because it was running along a cliff, and there was a bull moose there. And I think he tried to throw some rocks at it.
I don't know. That's dumb.
That is dumb. But it was blocking his way. So and that was our first time. That same trip was our first time seeing moose. And the very first moose encounter we had was with, are they sow? Are they called sow? Female moose?
Calf.
Sow and her calves. Anyway, it was a female moose with her young. And we didn't know at the time. And our buddy who lived in Wyoming was freaking out. We didn't know at the time, but that's like of all the moose encounters you can have, a mom with the young is like the most dangerous one you can have. We didn't know that at the time. So there were some mistakes there.
Well, there you go. I'll put in a plug for bear spray that not only solves problems with bears, but sketchy people in Ohio as well as moose in the worst case scenario. So
in fact, we're going on a trip, and there's a can of bear spray right down there. We've never really carried bear spray with us before regularly, but we're going to an area in West Virginia that has a dedicated black bear sanctuary. So we're carrying bear spray. Why not?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, odds are we probably won't have to use it, but if it makes us sleep better at night, it's worth the wait.
Yeah.
I don't know. We've never carried it before though. And we've never done, I don't know if Scott or any of you guys we've never done anything in grizzly country.
So I recently moved here to Wyoming, and right in the heart of grizzly country. So it is spring now. They're waking up. They have their cubs with them, and I carry it right on my hip. I have yet to make use of it, but as I said, it's fairly lightweight and solves problems from people to moose charges to angry mama grizzly bears.
Right.
So, it's about bear attacks are very rare, as is getting struck by lightning and things of that nature. But of the people that do get struck by lightning, they're typically hikers hiking on ridgelines in thunderstorms. And of the people that do get attacked by bears, they're typically solo hikers, hiking out in the middle of nowhere grizzly country, me. So best to take steps to mitigate things when you're putting yourself in a higher risk category for what are still, rare events. I suspect if any beginners listening to this, all of our horror stories and everything we never heard of, from grizzly bears to
we're really selling backpacking, guys.
You gotta get in the buddies group that doesn't include those encounters.
So, we should say, 98% of all our experiences out there are pleasant, or if it's not pleasant, I'm a big fan of, if I said, different types of fun. That's something I think people talk about.
Oh, yeah.
World. So type 1 fun, just for your listeners, sort of enjoyable things. Maybe that's, lounging on the beach, or things that are fun and pleasant in the moment. And then type 2 fun is not necessarily fun in the moment, but, good to tell stories about after the fact. And then type 3 fun is getting mauled by a bear, breaking a bone, stuff you never want to eat, stuff that involves, a rescue.
When you were bringing up the lightning thing, that's all I thought about during those hailstorms, because you're above tree line. So it's not like get to the lowest point, like you are the highest point, and you see the lightning coming down on the mountain, and you're just like, this is how people get struck by lightning.
Yeah.
I remember that. Oh, that was freaky.
So,
but yes, we're describing a lot of bad scenarios out there, and sort of our worst case stories and stuff. But for the most part, hiking's a good combination of type 1 and type 2 fun. There's some discomfort and, chosen challenge of not having a hot shower and a comfy bed.
Yeah. I always describe backpack. I always say, when I talk about backpacking with people who don't backpack, I'm like, there's 2 kinds of fun. There's stuff that's like really fun when you do it, but it's not that memorable, like a roller coaster, something crazy. And then there's stuff that's not necessarily that fun sometimes when you're doing it, but it's really memorable. And I put backpacking in that sort of category, where like it is uncomfortable sometimes, and it is hard. And that's one thing we always preach to beginners too. And this is a soapbox we've gotten on.
Not too much,
but I cannot tell you how many people we see backpacking, and it is regional, they don't appear to be in really good shape, like physically, like cardiovascularly. And backpacking is difficult. I mean, it's a physical exertion. And if you just and I'm not saying you have to be a marathon runner, but if you just put yourself in some semblance of better shape, you will enjoy it so much more. Yep. Like so much more. Because I think that is a barrier to some people. It's like, it's hard. Like putting 30, 40 pounds on your back and hiking 10 miles or going up a mountain, like it's physically hard. And if you're in awful shape, it's going to be that much harder. So that's something we try and tell people. It's like, I'm not saying like go run a half mile or something, but like put the pack on and walk around the block a couple times, or like just do something.
Yep.
Yeah. And on the flip side of that also brings to mind, I'll turn this over to Nicole in a second. People using backpacking for fitness and weight loss and things like that, beats a gym. And how often do you see that in the folks that you chat with, Nicole?
I mean, quite often. I mean, a lot of people, have found our website or heard about us, and because they, are embarking on a sort of a fitness journey. Mm-hmm. And I think it's really appealing because it's essentially just walking, right?
Yeah.
So I think people feel like, yep, I can do this. I do completely agree with you that, especially coming from the company standpoint, we obviously want to make sure that people are prepared and that they're healthy enough to take a trip, right? So, for example, when we prepare these route guides for folks, we're really careful. If they're a beginner, then we kind of are like, do you really want a 5-night trip? Because we want to maybe do a 1-night trip. Right?
So that's good. That's
going from like Florida to and then they want to maybe do the backpacking trip in the Rocky Mountains. Then obviously we consider the elevation as a factor that might not be great for the beginner. So yeah, I feel like we try to take that stuff into consideration.
So if someone wants to do that service with you and they're like brand new, absolute beginner, and they're like, I want 10 days in the mountains of Wyoming, do you like say, hey, maybe let's start a little smaller?
We have a checklist to go through based on experience, and that checklist gets added to as we learn and see the mistakes of what some people are asking for. And I encourage beginners to set up their equipment, spend a night sleeping in their backyard. For me, it gets into type 3 miserable fun pretty quickly. Yeah. If I get a bad sleep out in the backcountry and you're tossing and turning and joints are aching, like sort out your sleep system on the living room floor.
Yeah.
Before you head out there, and head out, go from your living room floor to your backyard, from your backyard to an hour from the trailhead, so you have the option to bail out. From that to a 1 night, to a 2 night, and scale up in an organized way, setting yourself up for success on things that aren't inherently comfortable or normal for people to work out the kinks in their systems on a regular basis. So.
Yeah, and I think making sure people, like the first time, and I kind of experienced this with my wife because she had never backpacked before she met me. Lucky her. She does it all the time now, but like I wanted to make sure the first time she went, like she had the most positive experience because I wanted her to keep doing it. And part of that was we're going 2 miles. Like we're bringing all the good food. We're going to have a great campsite. Bring all the clothes you want. I don't care. She brought a nail file. She brought all sorts of girly stuff. I'm like, that's fine. Like bring it all. I want you to just have a good time so that you'll be positively reinforced to keep doing this, because I think that's key. Just like the first couple times, like we'll just go a mile, we'll go out there, we'll cook some good food, bring your makeup, I don't care, like
bring whatever. She brought a bottle of wine.
She did bring a bottle of wine, and like just I just want you to have a good time so that when I keep dragging you out to do this, you won't say no. But it kind of echoes with what you're saying. It's like just start slow, start easy, because we do know people, and for some people's work, we know people that literally had never backpacked before and then went and through hiked the Appalachian Trail. Like 0 to 60 kind of stuff. And that works for some people. But I think the vast majority of people just like, I like the idea of just go in your backyard for a night. No, seriously, like test your sleep system. That's a good thing to do. We tell people with hammocks to do that all the time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just go in your backyard for a night. Like who cares? And then, if you get you're never going to get a great night's sleep your first night sleeping in the woods, but if you get a good night's sleep, then just kind of like titrate it up a little bit.
What, so I do want to switch a little bit back to actual Art of the Trek stuff. Like when people look at what you've built and designed right now, like where do you see the future of this going?
Yeah, so great question. And as I like to say to Nicole, not up to me and my preferences, up to where we see user demand and traction, and that has substantially been behind route guides so far. So I can envision a good focus on, I like to liken it to the App Store in a sense, where anyone can throw up a guide and you depend on reviews to see how good that is. We'll probably step into, have some approved guides or well-screened guides. The quality's there, but anyone can submit a request, anyone can respond, and allowing people to post those up there either for free, just to help get information out there, or if they want to charge for a route guide. Some of these, are 3-week routes through the, high Sierras, and, people invest a lot of time in putting together the initial guide and probably updating it from year to year. If they want to charge people for that, I think that's an elegant model as well. So a place for experienced backpackers to put out information, maybe make some money, and for beginners just to be able to click 3 times, then not have to think about anything. And not to say there isn't stuff to think about. People should think, use their own mind, but follow through with a good solid guide that they can be confident in, that'll get them out there with minimal to no surprises along the way.
So it's almost like you're moving towards like a model of, and continuing to do like just a strong virtual community of resources.
Yeah, and I should say, like, as part of being able to put together route guides, that involves, cataloging the campsites and the scenic locations and the trailheads, and, making sure the trails are up to date and routing along a map. People can go there and plan their own trips as well, and people do that on a regular basis, and having, people. So one area that we are currently weak in is we're still developing the mobile app side of things. So what I'd really like to see as well is people, verifying information of campsites and routes on the ground, submitting photos that they take there, and really giving people a good look on the ground. Another, as I say that, another neat thing that we have that I would would love to build out more is we have what's called Trail View, which is Google Street View for hiking trails, essentially. So we just have that in a couple hiking trails where we've done it with a test backpack, but it's a full 360 view of any point you want to see along the trail, so you can see what to expect. And I'd love to turn that into hyperlapse videos. And
that's a great idea.
Then you start streaming that on like a TV, and you put the treadmill on the highest incline. Throw your pack on when it's bad.
They have that. They have that for bicycles with Zwift. They do that for bikes these days. Yeah. So
that's very.
No, we're not looking to take it that far.
No, that's Andy and I. We love technology. We both kind of work in technology. I guess I do. You kind of do. I guess you do. No. But we're always we one thing we preach, and we do get a little bit of hate for this because there are a small minority of what I call the backcountry purists.
Yeah.
They're like, no phone, no GPS. Map, compass. We get a little, but that's the minority of people. We are all about, like, I keep preaching it on this, making it easier for people to get out there. And part of that is harnessing technology. So Andy and I are always looking at the next sort of technology. And a lot of that in the last at least 3 or 4 years has been what you guys are talking about, basically with the gut hook style of apps. That really only exists though for like 5 trails, I think.
I don't know.
But it's incredibly helpful
to
know, and Nicole, we talked about this, to know our water sources running.
Yes.
Or is there bear activity in the area?
Is there
what are the bugs like?
Yeah, is there a good spot to camp? What's the weather like this time of year?
Yeah. And having that in real time, the water stuff especially. I mean, that's almost the life and death thing sometimes.
Yeah.
But because water sources are seasonal, and that's one thing we relied a lot on when we were in Colorado. But anyway, we're all about using technology. That's why we have the InReach. That's why we have a host of apps we use out there. And then also, like, not necessarily backpacking related, but the camera technology and stuff. We're also into that. But I don't know. So it's good to see more of that. And I think that's helpful for people.
And for the electronic devices, you were referencing the purists. I guess there are 2 aspects to that. We come across a small minority of people as well who are like, hey, don't make it too easy for people to get out there.
Yes.
Don't tell them about this.
Absolutely.
And, keep them out of my trails type of thing. But again, that's very little. And most people want to make it easier for others and themselves to get out there with, information on leave no trace principles included for the beginners. And then for the electronic devices, it's a question of what's most effective. I guess a compass works in all scenarios as long as you don't lose it or break it.
Mm-hmm.
But what provides more information and utility out there is always going to be some GPS based device. And if you're worried about that, like I have, for example, my phone in cold temperatures, it'll just go black. It's not like the battery's dead, or there's like, you do need to worry about batteries in extreme cold environments, and stuff can get wet. But bring 2, like I have my Garmin watch with the route loaded in it. I have my phone, and I throw it in my InReach. I have 3 devices. So 1 fails, I still have 2. 2 fails, I still have 1. And if I lose them all, I still always have some sort of mental map of where the car is in my head, even if that ends up with some bushwhacking to get back there. So situational awareness combined with redundancy, I think, and if you feel better with a compass and a paper map, great, another layer of redundancy. But I think people who go out with a map and a compass and no GPS devices are also making poor decisions.
Yes.
Yeah.
Do you guys, either of you, do you want to talk at all about any personal upcoming backpacking plans you may have once pandemic's over? If you have any cool trips lined up or anything?
Oh, let me see. Well, Nicole is not a super backpacker, but she's got her trekking poles coming in. Maybe you want to, she's over in Austria. It's beautiful out there.
So Vienna actually has, I just saw, voted greenest city in the world. So we have lots of beautiful countryside and vineyards. And I've been working on exploring, just doing day hiking. But just doing all these different trails, just really right outside the city. So it's really, really nice.
Yeah. Myself, I actually, so Jackson very fit, active area with a lot of community demand for hiking trails. So I haven't lost any access. I've been able to get out as usual. The national parks are reopening here, so I usually end up sort of off in wilderness areas, or I end up on pretty remote trips myself. But this year, living right next to Grand Teton National Park, I have a collection of reservations there for sort of peak July, August.
Yeah,
nice. I'm taking through the Tetons there for a handful of 3 to 5 day trips.
Nice.
So yeah, that'll be good. I'm looking forward to those, and looks like the park's reopening on schedule to make those possible.
Yeah, both of you guys live in sweet places, so no excuses. We live in the middle of Ohio.
Yeah, where do you guys like to go? Do you have like favorite areas near you?
Yeah, we are surrounded by
like really mediocre backpacking.
We're surrounded by some West Virginia, Pennsylvania.
West Virginia's good.
And Michigan.
So that's Ohio has backpacking, and like we shit on it all the time, but like Ohio does have better backpacking than Indiana.
Yes,
that's what we say.
Better than Indiana.
And so we live in central Ohio, and we can get to backpacking in an hour drive. So like, I'm not going to complain about that. No. But yeah, like our like good places to go that aren't Ohio, is Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and Michigan, because that's like 5-6 hour drive.
Yeah,
and there's actually really good backpacking in all three of those states. But like,
now, do you think? Sorry to interrupt. I was just going to say, do you think your enthusiasm for the outdoors will guide your living choices in the future?
You know,
no, probably not.
Our sister just moved out to Reno, Nevada, to Lake Tahoe, basically, and I was out there, and I was like, I cannot imagine. I mean, we do a lot of backpacking now, but how much more outdoorsy stuff I would do if I lived in like areas where you guys live. I mean, like she's got like beautiful Sierra Mountain backpacking trails a 10-minute drive from her house. And that's not uncommon for people that live out in these areas. And I just simply can't imagine what life would be like.
I'm in the wrong career field.
Yeah, both of us are in career fields where we don't work where those kind of places would exist.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, maybe like later in life, you know, we're both from here, and our whole family's here, and Andy and I are like entering, the second phase of life here, domestic life. And, the good thing about Columbus and Ohio is it's really easy to travel places. So it is.
A lot of highways.
It's very flat. It's cheap to live here. Our airport can get us places pretty quickly.
Yeah.
We have a lot of vacation time.
But every time we go somewhere cool, we're like, I wonder what it would take to live here. You just need to do it.
You need to do it.
Yeah, you just need to do it.
So standing invite, if you're ever in Wyoming or Austria, we'd love to take you around our areas and show you around. So be happy to do that.
So you're in Jackson, you said?
That is correct.
Yeah, we've been there many times to ski, actually. Never to backpack. Never in the summer months. Well, that's not true.
No, we were there once in the summer.
We went there once in the summer, and it was just, Jackson is beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. So you're spoiled. And Vienna, I've never been there.
Our sister spent a bunch of time there.
Our sister lived in Paris for many years and went to Vienna a lot, but there's a ton of outdoorsy stuff out in that area. And people don't realize, like, there's a lot of outdoorsy stuff in Europe.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, like, backpacking kind of started in Europe, right?
Yeah, good. So I do have experience through the mountains of Europe. It's very so we're spoiled in America and Australia, New Zealand with what they would call wild camping, which we just call camping.
Yeah,
right.
Putting up a tent basically anywhere. So they don't do a lot of tent stuff out there. That's pretty much exclusively relegated to Sweden, Finland, and Norway are the only options for wild camping in Europe. Otherwise, they sort of corral you into these huts and food service and bunks, the sort of dormitory style, sort of more luxurious versions of what you'd encounter through the White Mountains of New Hampshire. They have those Appalachian Mountain Club huts up there. So they have those, and that's a neat system that facilitates trips, but there's not a ton of wilderness out there for sort of mainland Europe, I would look at Italy first. If anyone's looking at international trips, they have bivouac huts out there. They call them the bivaccis in Italian, and there you can pitch a tent next to them. They're unstaffed, unserviced. It's just kind of like please camp here to reduce impacts.
Yeah,
and Italy is probably one of the best out there if you're looking for the European Alps.
That's pretty sweet. People always ask us, they're like, have you considered going abroad to go backpacking? We're like, yeah, but there's still a lot of stuff in the U.S. we haven't crossed off the list.
Yeah.
And the White Mountains being one of them, actually. We almost decided to go there in a week, but we didn't. But that's been on my list for a while. That's tough. Although I'm not going to lie, like what you described, with those luxurious huts.
Sounds pretty cool, actually.
Sounded like it would be fun to do.
Yeah, it
my wife
depends
would love
what
it.
you're after. I mean, they have great food at them, like the kitchens and everything. You get hot meals.
Yeah.
You have to. I think your husband Nicole makes use of it. Yeah.
I mean, he loves going. I mean, because it's a bunch of guys drinking beer at night, eating schnitzels. I think it's a fun experience for them. Somebody's playing the guitar. They're all talking about what they did that day and what the plan is for the following day. So yeah. He enjoys it.
Yeah,
I
remember
beer and
someone telling
schnitzel.
me about like a thing. I don't know if it was in Germany or France, but like you basically day hike between these things, and then at night I'm like, that actually sounds really fun.
Yeah.
You don't have to carry a tent. It's a lot lighter. You get this nice food. I'm like, that actually be something I would like to do sometime. I don't know. So yeah. Any other topics you guys want to cover?
No, I think it's important for us to ask, like, is there anything about Art of the Trek that that you want us to know about that we didn't hit on?
Yes.
Yeah.
I guess for your listeners and viewers, we welcome feedback. Any opportunity, there's a live chat on the website. You can email Nicole at artofthetrek.com directly. Keeping a good engagement with our users is what we do, and it's real suggestions that get sent in. We keep a list of who suggested what, and they get an email when their feature goes live. So it's really user-driven development. So as much as people want to be involved, and now's a good time, a good asterisk to point out is, I don't want to say we're in beta mode, but not everything's perfect.
Yeah.
There's a bug there. We're building up. It's half the feature set we expect to have in another year. So bear with us. It's a work in progress, and yeah, set your expectations low and you'll be pleasantly surprised. We have a lot of good things going, but yeah, it's a work in progress that we put out there, so people can use it and offer feedback while we're building it up. So I think those would be the two main things.
Well, I mean, we certainly appreciate any innovation in this space, and so like to get things better, people need to use it and try it out and provide feedback, and so I think people need to do that.
I also I think it's something I really like about this is you guys are a supporter of the backpacking YouTube scape.
Yes.
And
you were smart about that.
Yeah, and that's something as backpacking YouTubers, we appreciate when companies, things will support a bunch of backpacking channels. I think that's good.
Yes.
So that's something we really like about you guys. Thank you.
Well, we appreciate the good content.
No.
So we're all on the same page.
Yeah, and this was really fun to talk to you both.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for taking the time.
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, take care.
Yep. Take care.